where lawmakers are now scrambling to return for the first House session in more than 7 weeks. There's a lot of travel chaos going on as House members are making their way back to vote on the Senate's deal to bring the longest shutdown in U.S. history to an end. And it will be the first vote for Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva, who was elected to her office 49 days ago, but will be sworn in tomorrow by Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson at around 4 p.m. Eastern Time. That is 49 days too late, not only for her, but also for the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
It's unbelievable that for 7+ weeks, Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva was elected in late September decisively, has been denied the ability to serve more than 800,000 people in Arizona. And why is that the case? It's because Republicans are running a pedophile protection program. They are intentionally hiding the Jeffrey Epstein files, but those days are over.
Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva was my source just before we came on air tonight. And thank you so much for joining us. Of course, it has been 49 days since you were elected. I wonder how it feels to know that by this time tomorrow, you will have been sworn in.
You know, it's a little surreal. We've been waiting a very long time. And so I'm almost like I don't have a lot of how to express how I feel until it's actually done. And I have a moment to let it sink in.
Is tomorrow technically going to be the first time that you've ever met Speaker Johnson in person?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I've never communicated directly with him, not once during from September 23rd to now.
I mean, your swearing-in ceremony will obviously be, you know, a point of celebration for you, for your team, for your family. I know, obviously, just given what the seat means to you and your family. But do you plan to use the moment to address this with Speaker Johnson?
I do. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to say. I'm going to be as respectful as possible and pretend my kids are standing right there next to me when I say, you know, this is not something, it's undemocratic, it's unconstitutional, it's illegal, should never happen. This kind of obstruction cannot happen again, regardless of party. Their job is to swear people in, and 813,000 Southern Arizonans haven't had support during the shutdown because of Speaker Johnson's lack of transparency and willingness to do his job.
But you do plan to bring it up with him?
Yeah. I feel like I won't be able to be myself. I won't be able to like sort of move on if I don't address it personally, and we'll see what kind of reaction he has.
Okay, we will all be tuning in to watch that, certainly. And obviously, you know, you've talked about what it will mean for you to actually be sworn in, be able to represent your constituents and do the work and actually get on Capitol Hill. For people who don't know, you actually have to have a pass to get on, and you don't have one yet as a representative-elect. But you will also be the 218th signature. You're expected to be to force a vote on the release of the Epstein files that are in the possession of the federal government. Do you plan and do you expect that those other 217 lawmakers, including the Republicans who are voting for that they're still signing on to it?
I believe so. I mean, I would think that if Speaker Johnson had, you know, taken this 7 weeks to try to convince somebody to come off of that list, that my swearing in wouldn't be as impactful. But also, we have to appreciate that one of the signers also was just elected governor, Mikey Sherrill, and so we're hoping to be able to get this expedited as soon as possible, have a vote, and people can vote their values and express to their community why they voted or why they didn't vote to finally bring justice to the survivors of Epstein.
What did you make of Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader there, accusing Republicans of running what he described as a pedophile protection program?
You know, I think it's pretty direct. I feel like at this point we're done sort of tap dancing around what the implications of those files really mean, and anyone who is implicated needs to deal with the legal consequences for breaking the law and committing horrific crimes against children and women.
Do you think that there's any chance that Speaker Johnson or the White House tries to stop that vote and that release from happening of the release?
Well, Speaker Johnson has already tried to stop the vote. He sent Congress home a week early in order to avoid a vote. So absolutely, I think we need to be prepared to call out any obstruction in releasing the files.
Can I ask, because obviously you're going to Washington, you're voting on this deal that has gone through the Senate now and is coming over to the House to reopen the government. I know that you've been opposed to that because it doesn't include the extension of the ACA subsidies that Democrats have been saying they're fighting this fight over for the last 40-something days. But can I just point out that that vote is expected to happen tomorrow in the House to reopen the government. After that, though, we think the House is going to be out of session the rest of the week. It was already scheduled that way, but I wonder just what you make of that you're coming to have this vote, and then obviously there's a lot of other work for the House to do that has not happened over the last 40-something days.
I don't know any other job where you don't work for like the majority of the last 4 months. 19 days over 4 months. It's crazy to think about. And the fact that everyone has been compensated. When you look at federal workers and this devastation of missing yet another paycheck, it's so difficult for, I mean, everyone that I've talked to is like, we don't know where our next meal is going to come from, but we want you to keep fighting for us. We like seeing Democrats fight for working people. And that vote really does nothing to protect affordable health care for the American people. And Republicans have had 15 years since 2010 when they have continued to discredit the ACA, talk about how it's wrought with all these issues. You've had 15 years to work on it. And now we're talking about having a vote in the Senate in December when half of December it's closed down for, the holidays. It really is incredulous. I just cannot think of another job that would be allowed. Well, and it shouldn't be allowed. And people in every district should be mad at their representatives for not working.
This funding deal will only go through January. I mean, do you think that there could be another government shutdown in 2 months from now?
I do. Well, and why is it that this House and Senate can only work on a budget in increments of 2 or 3 months? Why can't we have a budget that actually addresses the rest of Congress and work on the issues that we can find some bipartisan support? I mean, that's crazy. And yes, we're going to be dealing with the same situation all over again.
I think a lot of Americans would probably agree with that sentiment, Democrat and Republican. Congresswoman-elect, hopefully the last time we call you that, Adelita Grijalva, thank you for being here tonight, and safe travels.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And the group chat is back. So first, we know that Mike Johnson has said, look, this is something Nancy Pelosi did at one point, not bringing someone in until the House was in session. Of course, now turnabout became what they're hoping to say is unfair play. Is it remarkable in any way that Grijalva is finally getting seated? You're smiling. Because a Democrat, or do you think there's something significant about the moment?
Well, when Speaker Johnson made that comment, he left out one caveat. That was the request of the incoming member to delay the swearing in for one reason or another. So
what you're saying, it wasn't partisan at the time?
Right. 800,000 people in Arizona went without representation after a decisive victory in that race, which I think is not only unconstitutional, it's a matter of political malpractice. After a 54-day paid taxpayer vacation, Republicans are now finally back to work. But in the midst of all that, he could have easily sworn her in to allow 800,000 Arizonians to have representation, Democrat, Republican, Independent, or those who did not even participate.
With all respect, you're trying to gaslight Republicans for the shutdown when it was Democrats who were doing it. So I'm not really buying that, because Republicans, when Biden was in office, they voted 13 times to give him a clean CR. That the golden rule is that you do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And unfortunately, the Democrats in the Senate were the ones who really did this shutdown. So they have themselves to blame for keeping this Congresswoman out of office. It's not illegal. She's wrong about that, because obviously there is precedent of this happening, and there was no legal ramifications against Nancy Pelosi at that time.
Well, again, Nancy Pelosi was asked to delay the swearing in, and Johnson could have sworn her in the midst of the government shutdown.
She said it was illegal. That's an important thing to accuse the Speaker of the House of illegal criminal.
But there were lawsuits filed. I was going to answer that question. There were lawsuits filed by the Arizona Attorney General that the courts will ultimately decide whether it's legal or not. But the fact is, in the midst of the government shutdown, he could have sworn her in if he wanted to.
In the meantime, there's this conversation that is returning about the Jeffrey Epstein files. There are a couple Republicans that kind of keep this ball in the air. Grijalva would have been joining a vote there. Why do you think they are keeping that ball in the air? There's plenty of time for Thomas Massie or whoever to be like, okay, we don't need to talk about this anymore.
Well, because conservative voters care about the Epstein files, and they have for many, many years. And the reason that some of these Republicans are, defecting from Donald Trump is because their voters care about it. Now, the reason why a lot of Republicans would prefer not to talk about this is because, we don't even need to see the files. There's plenty of videos showing Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein used to cavort together.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.